So what I get a sense of is more of the highlighted energy and maybe a bit more of the positive energy. What I want to say for this week happens more so towards the end of the week, as in after this full moon in Libra. But there, and where we get more of this highlighted theme of like economics and global stability and those kinds of things, but it feels much lighter now. That tended to be a theme throughout this entire video. Of course, I go more in depth, so just watch the whole thing and you'll understand what I mean. Just a reminder that this is meant to be a global mundane reading and not at all an all signs or sun sign kind of a reading. Those readings are too overly simplified. Okay, so let me just jump into the chart here for this week. Obviously, we're going to start here on Sunday, March 29th. Top of my list here first is we're going to have Juno coming into Aquarius basically overnight on this day around 3 a.m. Central. So what I get a sense of with this is progressive partnerships. There's partnerships and likely possibly new partnerships, what I feel. Remember, this is mundane. This is like political, global, economic kind of partnerships, okay? Or even kind of like businessy, high-level businessy partnerships. Contracts like between companies and like the bigger deals kind of a thing. But this feels like I get a sense of like what it looks like to me in my mind is like business people like shaking hands, but I get a very progressive sense. This is very progressive in moving forward in a very new direction, in a very new way. Okay, this seems very progressive partnerships. It feels like there's a lot of newness to this, maybe new partnerships, etc., that are being built, not just with this ingress, but it's likely throughout Juno's passage through Aquarius here as well. But that'll obviously probably likely start at this ingress where we'll begin to see maybe these things start to occur. Okay, also on this day we're going to have the sun here, which will be making minor aspects to the node. So there's this quincunx to the south node and the semisextile to the north node. What I get a sense of is there are certain people, negative people, that are very frustrated with the letting go of the old world and how ways used to be. And what I get a sense of, so there's also people in the collective that I almost want to say there's this mourning the loss of the old world, of what they once knew, because it's all they ever knew. And then when you're told that a lot of things were a lie, or a lot of things, you've been deceived by a lot of stuff, like, and I'm being drawn to say this could be in relation to something like the Epstein files or something like that, that it's very frustrating that occurred, and that you have to let go of that because that's all that you knew, and now you have to learn something new. I get this from a sense of maybe someone who is older, or maybe older people in the collective, like let's say some people in their 50s or older that have issue with, you know, it's all that they knew, and it's like if the old world goes away, they don't understand anything anymore, right? When it's like, well, we're all in this together and we all have to remain progressive in moving forward. But that's what I get a sense of where that frustration lies, is certain people frustrated with having to let go of the old because of that manipulation factor, because of certain things. And then there's also the negative people that don't want to let go of that old world, and it's frustrating to them because then they lose control. Okay, that's what I get a sense of with that. I'm being drawn to the fact that the sun is still in conjunction to Saturn here, and where Saturn is restricting in an appropriate way. What I get a sense of, it's setting appropriate boundaries against those who are not allowing proper independence, sovereignty, etc., not only for the collective on an individual level, but also through countries and those kinds of things, etc., allowing sovereignty and independence and multiculturalism to appropriately exist. Okay? Then of course the semisextile to the north node is it's highlighting there's this new path forward, but again it references that unknown aspect that I sense with that frustration and the letting go. It's like everything that I've known is now gone, and it's like there's this new path, and do I want to learn something new and all this? It's that frustrating. I feel like that quincunx is that that stronger aspect here, but that semi-sextile, it's highlighting that new path forward that seems unknown, but unbeknownst to a lot of people, or the people that I'm talking about, is that this newer path is much, much better than what we've been used to before already. Okay, so not to necessarily fear it, but yes, it can be frustrating, but it is a necessary adjustment that needs to occur in order to be able to move forward. We're also going to have Venus here in this semi-sextile to Uranus as well. So Venus at the end of Aries, Uranus at the end of Taurus. This feels like there's people shifting and changing, whether there's shifting of positions. I almost feel like governmental positions. This feels like maybe certain, it doesn't feel like, I don't want to say that, but this feels like leadership positions, but in a more sub-level of types of government, where it's not maybe like the president, but it's people that are under him that lead certain factions or aspects of government, or something along those lines, where it's high-level figures that are changing, and these people are leading. They're the independent leaders for specific roles or independent institutions, etc. There's a sense of independence when it comes to these people in terms of what they're leading or what they're doing and what they're in control of. Okay, but there's this feels like very large changes that are involved here in shifting around a lot of these people that are involved. I say large shift and changes because with Uranus and Taurus, I've talked about this a long time ago in previous videos, that these are like bigger shifts and changes that have to occur with Uranus and Taurus. And it could also mean that those certain people that are shifting around are big shifts and changes because we maybe would have never seen them before, because these people maybe their positions were bought, or things like that. But it's almost like the removal of that kind of thing and shifting. It almost seems like more appropriate people in their place, or something surrounding that with these shifts that are occurring with this. Okay, I'm being reminded again that yes, I'm saying this on a Sunday, but there's obviously windows where these aspects build and wane, so this could roll over into the beginning of the week as well, or have been enacted maybe throughout prior days on the weekend, etc. So just keep that in mind when watching this. So let's move on to Monday, March 30th. And of course, this is when we're going to have Venus now coming into Taurus. Okay, Venus entering into Taurus. I feel a more like a grounded kind of an energy with this. Venus, it obviously rules Taurus, it's her home sign of Taurus. So that aspect of maybe coming home with this in a sense, but I feel there's also a lighterness to this energy in terms of aspects of abundance in some way. What I get a sense of is there's a trickiness to this due to like economic issues that obviously we've had and seen. But it feels like there's a path to a more abundant space with Venus entering into Taurus or home sign. I did this. Anything else with this? This feels much more like Taurus-y, like grounded. We're dealing with aspects of material things in abundance when it comes to this Venus and Taurus. That seems to be more of a highlighted, stronger focus with this, and it seems that. But I feel like there feels like a lighter energy to this. What is this? What? I'm not getting anything more beyond. All I'm going to say is that it feels like a more lighter energy, but it's surrounding these aspects of material. Okay, they're reminding me that it's like you need to experience these things. It's like we're not going to tell you absolutely everything that is going to be occurring with these transits, etc., because you need to have the actual physical experience in your world, in your reality, to do this, to properly learn, grow, experience those kinds of things. So you're only going to be told certain things in order to help with your evolutionary growth. Okay, so yeah, I guess we're done with that. Venus will also be in square to Juno. So Venus at 0 degrees Taurus, Juno at 0 degrees of Aquarius. This feels like new progressive partnerships, contracts, etc., like I talked about before, but it is now surrounding. Okay, this is where we're getting maybe more of this economic stuff surrounding. It almost seems like more economic stability, or this aspect of like abundance, stability, economics, but it feels much lighter. Like it's not this heaviness, worry. It just feels much lighter. And I'm not getting any further details than that based on what I've already said. But yeah, that's that. Okay, so let's move on to Tuesday, March 31st. Of course, on this day, we're going to have the sun here in trine to Black Moon Lilith. Okay, sun trine Black Moon Lilith. This feels almost like a bit more righteous and just for those who have been outcast. I get a sense of this in this aspect of more independent behavior kind of returning in a way towards countries. Like, because with the Sagittarius energy, this feels like it's on a more global scale, obviously, but it's like towards countries that now get to maintain more of their independence in some way. Like, this is being highlighted in some aspect like this. Like, I obviously, like, okay, I've asked, is there any more to this? And I'm getting a no. It's like, we need to experience these things. You're getting kind of like bits and pieces of what it is to know what to expect, but at the same time, it's not just throwing it all out there so that you don't. They're saying you incarnated in a physical human body to have this physical human experience. Yes, we can help you in understanding what is about to come with the energies and what is about to come, what is about to occur, but we're not going to tell you everything because you need to have the experience. Again, that is what's coming through here. So yeah, anyways, I've already said my piece on that. So that is the 31st, Tuesday, March 31st. So let's move on to Wednesday. This feels like a quick video. Let's move on to Wednesday, where we're going to have this full moon happening here in Libra. Okay, now this is what I get a sense of in relation to this trine to Black Moon Lilith. Okay, what I get a sense of was this fact of justice that I mentioned, and I'm like, well, where? And then relating to independence, but I was thinking, well, where's the Libra? I don't know why I was thinking that, but where's the Libra as in like balance and justice? But here it is with the full moon. Okay, I feel like it's highlighting this sense of justice and balance surrounding these aspects of independence. Okay, through this, and realizing it's unjust to have certain people outcasted in certain countries or certain cultures or certain ways of being or whatever, and that this aspect of independence and not feeling outcasted, but being able to be a country, but also as individual, cultural, country, whatever, autonomous, but then not to be excluded by other people's beliefs of other countries around the world. It's like this aspect of balance and mutual respect and justice and those kinds of things. What I get a sense of as well is this is surrounding aspects of governments. Governments may have been very restrictive of people or restrictive of certain things or that kind of stuff or whatever, and they're no longer going to be outcasted. It's like this healing of this outcasted behavior and allowing that independence of those people of those countries to exist once again in their sovereignty, independence, to be able to be themselves and not be restricted by what the word that I'm getting is like regimes or those kinds of things. And what I get a sense of is with full moons, it's about releasing what isn't balance, what isn't in balance, or what isn't justice, but it's what it is, it's also highlighting those things. It's highlighting those things to bring it up, to bring that state of balance, but which then, of course, also releases that which is unbalanced. Okay, to bring that state of justice and balance in, etc. with this. Okay, so that is that full moon in Libra on Wednesday, April 1st. We're also going to have Venus here now in Taurus in this semi-sextile to Neptune. What do we got? I feel a very soft and more lighter energy with this, and it feels like surrounding this aspect of independence, but there's also like this sovereign aspect towards money, abundance. Like there's money and economics, that kind of stuff is playing a role here, as well in aspects of independence, but there's like this softer, lighter, it's almost like a joy kind of an energy. There's a softness to this, but there's almost like a happiness with this independent, positive. It's more peaceful in a sense through this independence. Like there's no, like I said, there's no aspect of that regime controlling you or limiting your independence. It's more softer because it allows you to be who you are and have more freedom to maybe use your money in your own way economically, that kind of things. But this is on a country level. But it feels much lighter, like it's not as controlled. It's like there's more freedom involved. There's more, it just feels much more lighter. That Neptune is bringing in, like, I don't know what it is. It's this softness, but which makes it feel lighter in terms of you're able to be independent. And it's just like, I can't explain it any further than that, other than that's what I'm feeling with this. Okay, so that is Wednesday, April 1st. Let's move on to Thursday, April 2nd. Of course, this is when we're going to have Venus in quintile to Jupiter here. I'm just going to grab a drink. What I get of is with this Jupiter in Cancer, I get of this sense of home, but home is wherever that is to you. I'm feeling this sense of home and sovereignty on this countrywide level again. So wherever you consider to be home, and that's okay wherever that is in the world, whatever country that is in the world. Okay, and it's this expansion of this aspect of home and this with this Venus in Taurus, it's just, there's an aspect of money that feels lighter again. It feels lighter. It feels less heavy. It feels less worrisome. It feels less, I don't know what this is or what's happened or what the fuck is going on, but that's just what this feels like to me. It feels like something has been maybe worked on previously behind the scenes that is now coming out to support this in whatever way. Something previous has occurred that has happened behind the scenes, whether we've seen it, know it or not, that has now come to support this in whatever way. And it's on the home front, and this feels like more economic stability, but like, it's hard to believe even for me at this point when I'm recording this video, but that's what it feels like. I don't know how else to say this. We're also going to have the Sun here, also in quintile to Juno. What do we got? Again, there's this aspect of partnerships. But this is respecting the ideals of independence, independent nations. It's like, let's have this is very progressive in terms of let's have these partnerships to progress and work together, but respecting each nation's independence and sovereignty and cultural ways. But respecting that, but of course still working together where it's what I get is economically feasible, but not just that, but also like in helping each other out. like with that mutual respect but understanding. Just because you're different doesn't mean it's bad, and we're still all human and we're still here to help each other out regardless of differences in cultures, countries, that kind of a thing. Seems to be a very large theme this week and surrounding whatever this is. Now, what is as it relates to this quintile? It feels like maybe some of these partnerships and stuff have been already being worked on behind the scenes, and now what's coming to fruition and kind of showing themselves in terms of the progress that is being made and working together in these independent ways, in whatever way that shows up. So that is Thursday, April 2nd. Let's move on to Friday, April 3rd. And of course, this is when we're going to have Mercury now in trine to Jupiter. But I get a sense of Mercury's still in shadow, post-shadow. So what I get a sense of is this realization of this is still kind of maybe stuck on these old things that we've realized, how we've been manipulated, controlled, those kinds of things. But through that is helping expansion and growth in what it feels like. So with Jupiter in Cancer, I'm getting a sense of the Sagittarian energy mixed with Cancer, as in dealing with this global scale, but in terms of the home front, or what feels like home, and representing these different aspects of what feels like home in terms of individual countries, etc. This, how we've been manipulated into and deceived into, honestly, in a lot of ways, into hating each other. And that through that deception, we've learned to hate each other, we've learned to do whatever, but it's shifting towards now a sense of more mutual respect and understanding. Through understanding what that manipulation was, that control was, all of those things. I get a sense this is relating to the Epstein files in whatever way, or things that are like that, where there were people that were operating almost in a sense in like a shadow government or a shadow kind of a way to manipulate and control things for their benefit, but to fuck everybody else over. Okay, and in order to keep that occurring, they had to create such a way where we kept fighting each other instead of actually realizing the true potential of our own selves. Because in realizing the true potential of our own selves, we then become empowered, and we no longer need the asshats that were trying to control us. We never needed them in the first place, and they were just there to abuse and control. So, but through this, we're realizing almost like the errors of our ways, but in a sense, how we've been coerced and manipulated into believing certain things, and how realizing that and awakening to that now leads to this growth and this expansion and this understanding now of different home fronts on the world, and to learn to respect each other as a global world humanity, as this is wholly our home, but there's different unique individual homes, as in countries of the world, places to be, different ways to live as well at the same time, and that is to be respected and not hated on in whatever way. That is kind of a lot with that one aspect, but there we go. We're also going to have, where are we here? The Sun in semi-square to Uranus. So Sun in semi-square to Uranus. This feels very much like taking action towards progress and change. It feels like economically, like deals, trade deals, like there's deals and things that are moving forward now that are much different than from before, and it's just, it feels less chaotic and more like this is something that could actually benefit people and growth and progress and economic growth and things like this, but it's through independence, through honoring people's independence and supporting each other's independent economic growth, but while supporting our own independence and their independence, and working together through that to support that economically through progress and change, etc. It feels I don't know how else to say it other than that. We're also going to have Venus here in square to Pluto. This feels very much like a driver to economic change, as in there's this transformation. Remember, Venus rules Taurus, so we're dealing, I get a sense we're dealing a lot with this material side of Venus and Taurus. And we're, of course, with that material things, economically, that kind of stuff. But with this Pluto in Aquarius, this transformative drive for progress in pushing towards this progress, towards these economic things, goals, etc. And now remember, especially with a square like this, and with Pluto that doesn't really move very quickly, but Venus moves a bit more quickly. This obviously has been building and then will continue even after peak to wane for several days. So the build up to this and the fallout, I don't want to say fallout, but the waning aspect of this is likely this longer period of time. So we will likely have seen things where this has affected other parts, earlier parts of this video that I was talking about in terms of maybe these economic changes and stuff with Venus in Taurus, as it relates to this as well, building in this square to Pluto that's pushing for this transformation and change. Okay, but this feels very positive, like it's progressive transformation and change, and it pushing to take action on these things towards this, and it feels like economically and stability and those types of things that are being that progress is being made on. They're also, what I get to say, if I can talk. Also on this day, we're going to have this Mercury in semi-square to Juno. Okay? I get the sense of new behind, this is not necessarily hidden, but we're talking about more behind the scenes talks. What it feels like economically, again, surrounding these partnerships regarding progress and change and moving forward, growth, that kind of stuff, etc. But it feels a bit more, with this Mercury in Pisces, it feels a bit more behind the scenes. It's not necessarily like it's being hidden in a nefariously deceptive kind of a way, but just more of it's like a private conversation between these people involved in these partnerships that are discussing these types of progress and changes that need to be pushed forward in some way. It's not necessarily being hidden because we're likely going to be knowing about these discussions, but that it's happening and we may not be privy to all of the information until it's something like a press release or something like that, right? So we see this as maybe these conversations are happening and it's regarding these new partnerships that are occurring and people are having these conversations. It's in essence in private to discuss these things, and then the results obviously will be brought to the world or to whoever else is involved, right? So that's what I get a sense of with that. So that is Friday, April 3rd. Let's move on to Saturday, April 4th. There we go. And then here we're going to have the Sun in biquintile to the South Node in Virgo. What I get a sense of is this is very much taking action towards these new ways of independence, sovereignty, etc., in moving forward and releasing these old ways. This South Node feels very old now, like it's gone, it's moved away, that old world stuff is not holding anymore. And this feels like it's based upon what stuff that we haven't fully seen or don't fully understand, but that has occurred behind the scenes. Okay, but this is relating to action moving forward surrounding those things, towards more independence, sovereignty, freedom, globally as a whole, that kind of a thing, and letting go of how things used to be run in a very controlling and negative way, and moving into kind of this in a new world kind of a way where there's, like I said, that more independence, that kind of stuff. We're also going to have Venus here, also in a biquintile to Black Moon Lilith. I get a sense of this. It feels economically like how people have been outcasted as well. But it feels like there has been work that has been gone on behind the scenes to work with that and try to fix that outcasted energy. And again, this feels like between countries, like the trade or economic ties and things between countries, where people may have been outcasted in some ways, or we're not going to do business with you because you have these views, or those kinds of things, whereas that's kind of gone now. It's like falling apart or whatever has happened behind the scenes to work on that and fix that. It's now releasing that aspect of being outcasted in whatever way, and there's this aspect of more working together on a global level, whether it be economically. It feels more materially and economically, okay, is what is really feels like to me with this. So what has occurred behind the scenes before, whether we knew it or not, is now relating to the whatever this progress going forward is, in not allowing or not having people be outcasted, etc., like whether economically or in those kinds of ways. Now we're also going to have Mercury here in this quintile to Uranus. Okay, this feels more like speaking out, or I get more of a sense of, what I get of a sense of is Trump, or we can more generally say political leaders, and speaking out almost in like a press conference kind of a way, or that kind of a sense where they're on the podium and they're speaking whatever. And what I get with this, and this is surrounding a lot of economic change based on what has been come up with or thought about or talked about or whatever behind the scenes with these new partnerships, contracts, etc. That's what I get with this quintile energy of regarding that behind the scenes stuff. And now this is being talked about or spoken about regarding these changes, and it feels like economic changes that have been talked about behind the scenes that will be moving forward in whatever way. Again, I get with this Mercury and Pisces as well, with these kind of conversations that maybe have been hidden, but not necessarily on purpose in a nefarious way, but they've just been talked about, discussed, let's say, behind closed doors in a conference room or whatever, like these things usually are, but not meant to be in any kind of a hidden kind of a way, just discussed, and now it's being spoken about on a public level, about what those things have occurred and what has been worked on behind the scenes to create and build the things that are being announced and moving forward regarding progress and change economically in whatever way that is. Okay, so we're also going to have Venus here again, and it's going to be in this semi-sextile to Saturn. Oh, this feels... it's like there's certain aspects of... there's boundaries and stuff now in place, but this is against things that are negative or that we're controlling, or maybe these old things that aren't, that we fought against, and they're no longer kind of in existence to kind of mess with us anymore. Those boundaries are in place to make more appropriate decisions and contracts and deals that are more what I feel from a higher vibrational level, or more from a positive space, politically, economically, and maybe even more on like a human level, global level, humanitarian level, where with appropriate boundaries in place, you're not going to get screwed over by people that are trying to manipulate things to their advantage or whatever in whatever way. It feels like these are appropriate boundaries in place to protect positive economic deals or those kinds of things that are occurring. That's probably the best way to say it. We're also going to have Mars here in a semi-sextile to Chiron as well. Interesting. This feels very positive in taking appropriate action to not allow wounds or whatever of independence, of sovereignty, freedom. Again, this feels economic in whatever way, but it's not allowing these wounds or whatever to happen again, or these hardships to happen again. And it's taking action in an appropriate way to do this. And in Pisces, it feels like in a more compassionate way, but it's also it feels like more behind the scenes supportive in these action steps to move forward, to not allow. It feels like we're getting hidden support, whether it's, you could consider it spiritual support or support that's just simply people that we don't normally see that are supporting us or helping us in whatever way, that don't see the spotlight. You know, like the main politicians see the spotlight, but there's a lot of people that work behind the scenes to do a lot of these things that we don't know about or see, that enact a lot of this stuff. And that's what I feel like this is relating to, surrounding this, to prevent these, what I get a sense of is almost like economic wounds, or these wounds of sovereignty or wounds of freedom, but in that sense, to not allow those wounds to happen again. Okay, and taking these steps, and I get a sense that it's probably related to as well that Venus in semi-sextile to Saturn there to set appropriate boundaries, etc. Okay, so that is Saturday the 4th, and of course we have reached the end of the video here. So if you have made it this far in the video, please leave a purple heart in the comments that I know you are a real one. And if you do want this personalized in any way, of course, as I said, like this video is meant to be a mundane reading. So this is how it affects us globally, economically, politically, that kind of stuff, how it affects everyone. But if you want this understood on a personal level for you, I do offer personal readings. All those links are in the description below. You can head on over to my website, mysticalmark.ca. I also do have a section of my website where it's kind of like astrology forecast versus the news. So where I take previous week's forecast and relate them to the news stories for the week to show basically the legitimacy of what I am doing here, and that yes, what I am getting and what is coming through is relating to what actually is happening or will be happening in the world. Now, of course, you have to remember that with any kind of intuitive prediction like this, that free will can change things. We have free will, of course, so it's not always going to be everything that's going to come into light, but I do want to show what will or what has come to fruition through these videos here, of course. To provide an aspect of legitimacy to what I'm doing here, because obviously I do this in a bit of a different way than what traditional astrologers would do, as I'm getting this stuff through intuitively and not just focusing on the mental limitations of the mind to try to figure something out. Okay, anyway, that's it. I think that's all I have to say, so I hope to see you all in next week's video. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.